nice to have you with us.
Good morning, Bob. Thanks for having me.
First of all, I want to congratulate you. You are the new volunteer coordinator.
That's right, Bob.
And who did you replace?
Catherine Noble.
Okay. So let's start off with the benefit of the new residents.
Sure.
Where are you located? Where's your office?
So my office is in Garden Ridge.
Oh, you're way over there.
Over in Garden Ridge. And that has to deal with, you have a lot of sometimes outside people coming to volunteer, and they volunteer in Garden Ridge. So having that office in there is helpful when I'm meeting with new volunteers. But yes, it's in Garden Ridge. It's on the second floor.
Okay.
If you go upstairs, we have the rehab facility up there for residents, and it's just down the hall, and you'll see it has a sign outside of I'm in a suite, and outside of the suite it says volunteer programs, and you go in there. I'm around the corner, just stick to your guns. I'm in there. It says Kelly Luke Shander, volunteer coordinator on the door. And so you can go over there and see me, but I would recommend giving me a call first, especially as I'm getting, into the whole program and seeing what it is. I haven't been in my office that much, so making the hike over to Garden Ridge to find me not there is probably pretty upsetting. So you can also reach me by phone, and my number is, I have a full a 703 number. It's 703-923-3154. So a lot of...
One more time.
703-923-3154.
I hope you all wrote that down because this lady is very important as far as volunteering is concerned. And if you want to volunteer, and please, I implore you to do so, contact Kelly. You have her phone number. You know where she's located. Go on over to her office and be oriented?
Yes.
Speaking of volunteering.
Sure.
We have many, many facets of volunteering here.
We sure do.
And I know even in my brief stay at Garden Ridge, I saw so many volunteers, from a person delivering mail to other parts of what's going on in Garden Ridge.
Right.
Let's discuss some of the volunteer venues.
Sure.
Now, we have Channel 6. We're on Channel 6, and there's one volunteer talking right now.
Yes, Bob. We have so many different ways to volunteer. And I'm told, new in the job, over 800 volunteers here on our campus.
I was going to ask that. That's a good point to bring up.
Just that being, what are all these people doing? It's so many different things. We have volunteers within our resident groups that we have, our leaders and our co-leaders who are running these groups, like Socrates Cafe or Pickleball. We have people running those groups and putting time in. That's leadership. That's volunteer hours. So I have people doing that. We have people, like you said, in Garden Ridge, delivering mail. Could be visiting people, working in the beauty salon there. We also have people volunteering with our hospice program, and so those people are visiting those on hospice, whether it's just a friendly visit or just a pop in every now and then when a family member isn't there. So we just have so many different ways to volunteer, and I bet some people volunteer here without knowing that those hours can be counted. And I mentioned hours being counted. We do collect volunteer hours if you are someone who volunteers, whether it's with Channel 6 or other places. And we have those forms at each front desk. And so you can turn it in, your volunteer hours every month, what you're doing. And we take those hours. It's not really for Green Spring. It's good to know that you volunteer. We keep track of that. But your hours, at the end of the year, we submit them for Presidential Service Awards, and we have a big ceremony in February.
Oh, that's where it goes.
So those hours are important. If you want to track, you can get a little pin, you get a certificate. It's really a wonderful thing, and to be with other people who volunteer on this campus too is something in itself.
This is something I don't know, so I'm going to ask.
Sure.
Is IRS involved in looking at volunteer hours?
So we do have, to keep our nonprofits status at Green Spring, at the end of the year we do submit an average number of volunteers.
Okay, so
we don't submit the hours, but we do submit volunteers.
The fact that okay.
That's right. So that is important.
So what other venues? Now, we talked about Channel 6 and Garden Ridge. We have a lot of volunteers, for instance, in the players group.
That's right.
Now, they turn I assume that they have somebody there who amasses all the hours and turns those into you. this is mostly the format used by all volunteer groups. There is one person who is normally in charge, if you will, and submits that number to you.
Yes.
Monthly or
Yes,
yearly?
so
or what?
we do have it. There's some groups that are larger, lots of volunteers, like the Players or the Treasure Chest, for example. So many people are volunteering there. The Showgirls, just different groups that have a lot of people putting in hours. So sometimes with those groups, one person does collect the hours for everyone, which is totally fine, and submits them once a month. But I know some people who still do those things, but like to submit them on their own behalf as well. You can do that if you'd like. It helps me. I just have a quick thing, say it's a Bob Z, this is what he does, and I have it all in one place. But if you do it through your group, like Channel 6 submits the hours once a month, totally fine too. So it's up to the person. I won't double count your hours. We can figure out a way to make sure we have the right thing. So it's really up to the person how they'd like to do it.
Yeah. Well, I understand that we have a real fine, I'm going back to Garden Ridge. There are volunteers who visit patients. Is
Yeah.
that right?
We have that, and we also have another great program at Garden Ridge called the Garden Ridge Ambassadors. And that's headed up by Lynn O'Connor. And these people are there for residents or outside people who move to Garden Ridge, and you don't know the normal things, you know, how do I get my laundry done? Or when does this happen? When do I get my meals? Somebody to just kind of orient you to the new place that is Garden Ridge.
Lynn takes care of furnishing that information.
That's right. So she has a great group of volunteers who go over there, and when she finds someone moves in, she reaches out to one of her volunteers and they go over there. It might be just for a couple weeks, a check-in, or it might be longer. It depends on what the person needs. So that's really important if you're coming to Garden Ridge and you don't know. It's a big change from independent living, or if you're just staying in Garden Ridge for a short stay.
Let's talk about outside
Yes.
volunteering.
Yes.
Now, I know that we have some teachers who go to a school or schools, and they put in their time, which is so outstanding, that they would give their time to do something like that to help the children.
Yes.
How many of these do we have normally? Maybe 10, 15?
Yeah, it's around that, 10 to 15, and they're going over to a school. I'm not totally familiar with the whole program, just getting started, but yeah, they go over to the school, and I think they're reading with the children over there, which is really amazing. And I'm hoping as we go forward, we can do more connections with Green Spring and outside of campus. So if you know something, a program that's in need of volunteers, that we can try to get our people over to you and connect Green Spring with Springfield, I think that's great. I welcome any ideas like that.
We also have volunteers here who work with the staff people, the servers on ESL.
Yes, we do. That's another very important program. So that is residents who maybe have teaching experience, maybe they don't, but they take time out of their day twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and meet with staff members who just might need a little coaching with English as their second language, and help them go through the process and even apply for citizenship.
We have chatted about 4 major volunteers. There's many, but
yes.
talk about 4. And I want to reiterate again, if anyone wants to volunteer, Kelly Luxander is the individual he or she
Yes.
should contact.
Yes. So I encourage new people who don't know if their volunteer hours count, or how else can I get more involved,
Sure.
to come see me. But I also, as I transition into this role, would like people who've been volunteers here, have been doing something for so long, to reach out to me, just to touch base, make sure I know what you're doing and how I can help and keep this relationship going. So as I familiarize, if you would send me an email or give me a call, if you do a lot of volunteer work, I would really appreciate that.
One other question I have on working with a staff person. Is there a book or something that a volunteer uses to assist the person he or she is tutoring?
Yeah, are you talking about ESL, for example? Yeah, so that whole program, you don't just show up and sit down and talk. Yes, there's a procedure of what to go through. And
Oh, okay.
for other volunteer people, whether you're doing X, Y, or Z, there is a specific volunteer handbook that goes over just typical policies and procedures. But when you get assigned, say you do a one-time volunteer thing or you're trying something new, I will go through what your duties are and how you can, what to expect in your job and how to perform that job. Now, one more thing I will mention too, we have all these volunteers, but sometimes we have these one-time call for volunteers that we need. And if you're someone who wants to be notified when these one-time things come about, please let me know. That's very important. Today, Wednesday, the 26th, we have an event that's using one-time volunteers, and this is the Garden Ridge Goes to the Chapel. And this is the third year this has happened. So that's taking residents from Garden Ridge, and many of them have lived in independent living before, taking them from Garden Ridge to the chapel to worship in the place where they probably have before, just this one time, and it's a beautiful service. And so what I have for these one-time volunteers is I'm having people physically help take people from Garden Ridge and walk them over to the chapel. We can't fill all the buses with people who want to go over there. We have about 60 residents from Garden Ridge who will be making the journey. So I have people helping actually wheel people in wheelchairs from Garden Ridge to the chapel and back. But I also have volunteers helping with seating in the chapel if you don't feel you can walk all that way, which is pretty far. So we have people helping in that capacity. So sometimes I do have these one-time special volunteer things where we need some extra hands. And having that core group of people that I know I can reach out to is really important. So if that's something of interest to you, I'd like to help whenever I can. Let me know that as well, and I'll mark you on my list.
Volunteering. One of the things that I think about is don't sit around doing nothing when you have a volunteer program that you are heading, and you can always use more volunteers. Kelly, I want to thank you for coming on the show, bringing all this important information to us. I wish you a pleasant day, and I hope that you have a lot more volunteers knocking on your door, ringing on your phone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you for being on the program.